Life sometimes presents us with unexpected, unwanted, but unavoidable situations, often beyond our control, that providentially, painfully, allow us to look inward. It is as if we happen to pass in front of a sharp window or a mirror that reflects an image of ourselves that we have not been paying attention to. Caught up in the ordinary, we no longer notice where we are going. Misfortune, accident, the unexpected interrupts this ordinary time and make us enter into what we would call, even metaphorically, a Lent. Perhaps it is in this sense that the gospel passage that opens this Lenten journey presents us with an unexpected situation. Jesus is driven into the desert. This Greek verb ekbalo, to drive out, indicates precisely a violent movement, almost a compulsion, a being thrown somewhere by force. So it is clear that Jesus welcomes an inner movement that drives him into the desert. The desert is a highly symbolic place in biblical language, not only as an image but also as a fundamental movement in the life of the people of Israel. The desert is certainly the place where reference points are lost. The desert represents solitude. It's the place where our fears are born, the place where we cannot avoid confronting ourselves. In this sense, the desert is always an image of those situations in our lives where we are forced to look inward. For Israel, however, the desert is also a reminder of its history. It is in the desert that the long journey from bondage in Egypt to the promised land takes place. In the desert, Israel has a profound experience of its own sin and faithlessness. But it is also in the desert that it realizes that God is its only strength. It's on the way in the desert that Israel receives from God the law, the foundation of the covenant. This leads us to understand that often situations that seem only desperate and frightening can instead be the place of building a deeper relationship with God and a kind of purification of our interiority. This first Sunday of Lent also asks us to make this journey into our interiority. Jesus is driven into the desert, into the place of solitude where he is alone with himself. There are the times in life when we are brought back to ourselves, when we are forced to be with ourselves and to look inside ourselves. It's our whole life that goes through times of desert. For Jesus too, this is a necessary passage before he begins his ministry. You have to look inward, face your own motivations. In his humanity, Jesus is called to read the motivations he carries in his heart. So often we too find ourselves in the wilderness of life, alone and afraid of the evil that challenges us overwhelmingly. We are too weak to face such a cunning enemy alone. When we find ourselves alone in the wilderness of life, when we go through those unexpected and often exhausting situations, all that is inside us comes out. In a special way, those dark sides that we usually tend to silence become apparent. Those shadows that we pretend not to see become more visible. The desert of life forces us to face all this. It is not enough to decide to fight. If we want to win, we must decide to be on God's side. When we recognize our frailty and we rely on grace, we receive the strength and courage to face the struggle. The Apostle Paul calls us to put on the armor of God to resist the wiles of the devil. See, the wilderness is necessary. It is necessary for each person to experience that shadowy space in which one is called, badly alone, to decide which side to take. A time in which everything is reduced to the essential, in which there is no escape, in which one is placed with one's back against the wall and remains planted there, sinking one's roots into the ground to finally begin to grow. As a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst would say, when you are up against a wall, put down roots like a tree until clarity comes from deeper sources to see over the wall and grow. I wish you all a blessed Lenten journey.